Sometimes you're in a situation that you caused on yourself. We talked that this morning. We talked about that. You're in a tough situation. It's all your fault. But sometimes you're in situations where you didn't cause the problem. It just kind of happened to you. Like when I was on vacation in Gatlinburg last year. Watch the video. Oh, they look cute now. Thinking about it? Two bears got in my rental car, and all I could do is pull out my phone and tell my wife and kids, go hide. I'm videoing this whole thing, right? That's the thing you do. When you're in a tough situation and cause, you need someone to help you, and you don't know who. I didn't know who to call. I didn't know who was for me. Like, do I call a forest ranger? Like, bears literally got into our rental car. And sometimes you're in a situation that you caused, but other times you're in a tough situation that you didn't cause. And right now I'd like to take a quiz because I think there are some tough situations we need to make sure we know who to call. So here's how you take the quiz. First of all, hold your hand up like this. All you need to be able to do is to hold up a 1, a 2, a 3, or a 4. If you haven't gotten that far yet, ask a friend. All right. Tough situations quiz. There are going to be 3 questions. I'm going to give you a situation, and then you're going to have some options here. Here's number 1. Tough situation number 1 is you're getting bullied by someone. Who do you want by your side? Here are your 4 options. The Rock, John Cena, Dominic Toretto from Fast and Furious, or Mr. Shaw. Hold up your answers. Who you got? Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. I'm going Rock all day, every day on that one, all right? All right, here's the second one. Here's the second one. This is your fault, right? This is your fault. You get busted sneaking out by your parents. Who do you want to help you? Here are your 4 options from the cast of WandaVision. Monica Rambeau, Vision, Jimmy Woo, or Wanda. Who you got? Let me see your answers. Some of you are really pondering this right now. How many of you guys picked number 3? Listen. If I get busted by my parents sneaking out, I don't need superpowers. I need a smiling dude to talk my way out of the situation, all right? That's what I need. That's what I need. All right, here's the last one. Someone breaks up with you. Who do you want to write your breakup song? Here we go. Olivia Rodrigo, Coldplay, The Weeknd, or Adele. Who you got? All right. Okay, how many of you guys, Coldplay, anybody? Olivia? All right, that's good. Listen, those are some hypothetical, tough situations, but being with middle schoolers after 2020 to 2021, here's what I know, is that you and I have something in common in this room tonight. It's that a lot of you have a story about a tough situation. And so I have been writing down this year some of the things that students like you and students like mine back home have been going through. And situations that are not all that fun to talk about. But if we're going to get real tonight, we need to bring them in the open because we need to know who is for us in a tough situation. These are some of the things that our middle schoolers said when I asked them the question. This is what they said. I have a tough situation with how I see myself every single day. I have a tough situation not being welcomed because of who I am. I have a tough situation with my dad walking away from our family this year, and I don't know if he's coming back. I have a tough situation with telling the truth, and no amount of lies to my parents or friends has ever fixed it. I have a tough situation with actually making and keeping friends, that having a phone, the right clothes, and being able to answer what my social handle is hasn't fixed. I have a tough situation with acceptance that crossing physical lines in relationships again and again and again has not fixed. I have a tough situation with feeling no purpose in life, that being involved in every possible activity and meeting everyone's expectations hasn't fixed. I have a tough situation with being overwhelmed and anxious that staying isolated hasn't fixed. I have a tough situation that others have hurt me and no one knows, and I'm afraid to say something. I have a tough situation that involves being forced to go to church, and even though I don't care about it, I still have to keep coming. I have a tough situation that I've brought on myself by breaking my parents' trust so many times. I have no freedom. I have a tough situation with feeling like the only way out is not to be around anymore. That's what Olivia said to me one night after youth group. And when she said that to me, all I could look at her and say is, do you know who's for you? Today you've been learning about stories, about people who were in tough situations. One this morning that brought it all on herself. And yet what did Jesus do? He showed that he was for her by getting right next to the line of fire and say, throw a stone if you haven't done anything wrong. And tonight we're in a different story in our Bible, and so if you have a Bible app or a Bible, I want you to turn there, and if you've not read the Bible before, I don't want to assume that you know what I'm talking about. There are some books in the Bible that we call the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We're going to be in John chapter 9 tonight. I'm going to give you a minute to get there, and while you're getting there, I want to set the stage. John chapter 9, it's in the part of your Bible, like if you're looking, it's in the second half, the New Testament. These 4 books are extremely important because maybe you've never picked up a Bible before, or maybe you've not really paid attention, but there are 4 books that tell the story of who Jesus is. This is one of those books. Now, you've heard a little bit of the story already. There's a blind man. He's a beggar. And when you're a beggar in Jerusalem, no one cares. You are labeled nothing to people. People pass by you every single day, and you just sit hoping someone will be the hero and be for you. John chapter 9, we're going to start right at the beginning of the miracle in verse 6. Because you know the miracle. You know this story plays out this way. It's like you've seen the spoiler of the movie. You know that we have a blind man that sees. But do you know what happens afterwards? Because students, to know the whole story, you've got to see past the miracle. John chapter 9. This will not be on the screen. I want you just to hear it if you're not seeing it. Verse 6, then he spit on the ground. That's Jesus. He made mud with saliva. Gross. And he spread the mud over the blind man's eyes. And he told him, go wash yourself in the pool of Siloam. Siloam means sent. They had this giant pool that they would do ceremonial cleansing. Like, how many of you guys have seen a baptism before? Raise your hand. It's like that on a larger scale. He went and washed and came back seeing. So the miracle happens. But it's what happens next that I hope you hear tonight. His neighbors and others who knew him as the blind beggar asked each other, isn't this the man who used to sit and beg? Some said, he looks like him. You see, he's already been labeled the blind beggar. Like people already weren't for him. They've already given him a label. Maybe you've walked in this week with a label you cannot shake. Maybe people are blind to who you really are, and they don't see you for you. The beggar kept saying, yes, I am one. So they asked, who healed you? What happened? He told them, the man they called Jesus made mud, spread it over my eyes, and told me, go to the pool of Siloam, wash yourself. So I went in and washed, and now I see. Where is he now? I don't know. They took the man, and they put him before the Pharisees. If you don't know who those are, anytime there was a miracle, there was a fact check. There's a miracle, there's a fact check. There was a group of people, you had to go fact check the miracle. Is the miracle real and true? And these guys, the Pharisees, anybody that had a miracle, they would be brought down in front of them so that they could assess the facts and say to them, that was a miracle. So they brought him there. Because it was on the Sabbath that Jesus had made the mud and healed him, the Pharisees asked the man all about it. So they told him, he put the mud on my eyes. He kept repeating his story. He washed it away. I can see. I was blind. Now I see. That's what he kept saying. And so the Pharisees, they keep asking questions. And they keep saying things like, this man, Jesus, is not from God, for he is working on the Sabbath. They were caught up in their rules. But how could this be from an ordinary sinner to do a miraculous thing? So there was a deep division among them. They questioned the man again and demanded, "What's your opinion about this man who healed you?" He said, "I think he must be a prophet." The Jewish leaders still refused to believe the man had been blind and now could see. So they called his parents. Surely they would say something. But I think out of fear, this is their response. "Is this your son? Was he born blind? If so, how can he see? We know this is our son. He was born blind. We don't know who or how this happened. Ask him. He's old enough to speak for himself." His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jewish leaders who had announced anyone saying Jesus was the Messiah would be expelled from the synagogue. That's why they said, "He's old enough, ask them." So for the second time, they called in the man and they said, "God should get the glory of this because we know this man, Jesus, is a sinner." They don't even know him. They're already labeling Jesus at this point. The man's labeled a beggar. Jesus is labeled a sinner. And it ends in this part right here where we'll pause. He says, "I don't know whether he's a sinner. I do know this. I was blind and now I can see." That man's life was fact-checking his faith. That man's life was fact-checking his faith. All I know is I was blind and now I can see. Tonight, there's one simple truth you need to know about the hero in this room. It's not you, it's not me. It's someone who has the power to make blind man see. It's someone who has the power to look at the guilty and say, "You can be set free." You see, there are a lot of facts in your faith life right now. Like, you know a lot of stories about the Bible, but do you know the Jesus that has the power to take blind men and make them see again? Because I think a lot of you may be blinded right now in this room by some of the places you've come from right here to Mix tonight. Some of you have been in church your entire life. You could quote story after story after story, but you've never met the Jesus who can make a blind man see and take a guilty woman and set her free. You've never met that Jesus. Don't get me wrong, there are lots of facts about our faith that are really important. I could tell you about the 25,000 original copies of the New Testament right now that exist, and they're finding more every day, compared to the world's icon for manuscript copies, the Iliad and the Odyssey, which has 1,700, 25,000, 1,700. I could tell you facts. I love the facts. But what's more important is the faith. I was blind and now I see. That's the gospel. When you hear the gospel and you hear that Jesus died and rose again, the gospel is this. It cannot be explained that your life changed in any other way except that you were with Jesus. And some of you tonight may be blinded, like you think you know Jesus, you've been around Jesus, but I'm praying all day today that you have a collision with a Jesus that has to set the blind to sight and the captive free. I want to tell you a story that comes from our life. This year was a really hard year for our family, like yours. In our state, it was different from your state. We had to stay home and do a lot of things. And in our family, we have a history of some struggles with mental health, mine included. I struggle with anxiety and panic. And I have 3 daughters, Macy, Lucy, and Molly. And one of them, my firstborn, Molly, Macy, she had a struggle this year. And this year, we got to a place that, honestly, I've never been before. Youth pastors in the room, youth leaders, I thought I had been everywhere and I've seen everything. I had nothing to offer my 13-year-old daughter on a night in October. I asked her for permission to share this with you, and she said it would be fine. And I want to show you something in a second, but I want to set this up. There was a night where she had gotten in trouble for some things that she had done, and we just sat down to talk about it, and then panic ensued, and anxiety took over, and she literally just said these words, "I think I want to hurt myself. I have all these thoughts in my head," and like she kept explaining to me, and I said, "Baby, do you want to go somewhere?" She said, "Yeah." So we packed up the car, and can I just be real for a second? As a youth pastor all this time, driving your kid who has thoughts of hurting herself, and you have no idea what to do. You have no answers. All you have is Jesus. So we arrived at the ER and we checked in, and I had nothing to offer my sweet girl Macy. I just know we sat in this room as she was being evaluated, and people were, making sure that, that she was going to be okay and that these thoughts had passed and all these things. It was just such a bizarre concept. And at some point during the night, things changed. And I wish I could explain to you that somebody came in and gave a piece of advice or wisdom or something that changed the whole room. But all I know is I sent a text out when we got there, hey, please pray. I don't know what to do. My daughter's in trouble. And then somewhere in the middle of the night, things changed. And my wife texted me and said, hey, how are things going? And I took a picture and I sent it to my wife, and this is the picture of my daughter. And I don't know if you see that girl. That's not a girl who is full of dark thoughts and pain. That's a girl who's at peace with joy. And here's what I can tell you. I cannot explain what happened in that room, but I can tell you this. There was one hero that was for us in a tough situation, and his name was Jesus. And to Jesus, some of you are waiting to have an encounter with Jesus. I'm telling you, he is here. He is in this room. He is the only hero that matters, and he is ready to show up in a way that only your life can fact check your faith. Because all I know is we walked into a hospital with darkness and we walked out full of light. And by the way, just a comment about the darkness. For those of you that have battled that and you've had the dark thoughts, let's go back to Genesis. He made the night, so he owns the night. Jesus does not have any worry about the nighttime trouble that you're going through. He is for you in your tough situation. He's ready to walk in and do something that your friends won't understand, your parents won't understand, but you and him will know. He was for me in a tough situation. And tonight, some of you have been in some tough situations and you're wondering, what do I do now? You've been looking for answers everywhere but Jesus. But I'm telling you, he's for you in every tough situation. I love all the things going on right now, Marvel and Star Wars. I love heroes. I love the story, the highs and the lows. I love Loki right now. I love it all, and I love it because, all right, a few of us are cool like that. That's good. But here's why I love it. There's always a moment in the movies and the shows where the hero has to decide, is this worth my life for this moment? And as great as the movies have done showing us what that's like, it's nothing compared to what I know really happened 2,000 years ago. Because all of you and me are in a tough situation whether you realize it or not. It's a situation that's not one that I read off on that list. It's a situation the Bible calls sin. And sin has put everyone in this room in a tough situation. You're like, wait a minute, that's me? Yes. It happened long ago in the garden when we didn't trust God, and it's happening now. And here's the tough situation you're in. The God of the universe wants a relationship with you, but he can't unless something happens. Like, sin is your problem, it's my problem, and you may not realize you have a sin problem in your life tonight. I promise you, sin is not measured by the weight of what you do. It's anything that is not in view of God, of what he wants, it's on that category. In fact, the Bible says this in Romans chapter 3, he says, all have sinned and fallen short. That means it's everyone's problem in this room. It's everyone's problem in your church, your pastor, your parents, your friends. We all have it. And it's a problem not because you're like, well, I'll just be a better kid. That's not what fixes the problem. In fact, this is a problem so big, there's only one way to deal with it. Death. And we're not talking about a death, y'all, where like, oh yeah, someday I'll die. No, we're talking about a death, a payment that puts you away from God forever. And some of you want to gamble on that and try to like live a better life and see how that works out for you. Some of you want to live a church life and maybe God will smile upon you. Some of you want to like do many amazing things, but I promise you this, there's no amount of good in this room that's payment enough for sin. And that's why Romans 6:23 is so powerful in this room tonight, because you need to know it says the wages, the payment, the result of what you and I have in our life that we can't get off of us is death. And that's why this matters. Our God, our Father, was not okay with being separated from you and me. He was for us, so he became one of us. And he went through a tough situation on the cross, endured a bloody death so that he could change your sin situation. You're either in one of two camps tonight. You're either blinded by where you're at right now and not realizing you have a problem, or you're someone that needs Jesus so bad right now, you know he needs to show up. Well, tonight is your night to deal with your tough situation, not by your power, but by his power, because Jesus went through a tough situation to change your sin situation. Father, I pray in this room that you will do a mighty act. I pray that you will bring forth in this room some encounters with Jesus. God, there's some students that have brought some heavy stuff this week to mix, and they needed Jesus to show up to their room in a powerful way. God, some people, they realize the sin situation they're in, and they need